Take a flick. Take a flick. Come on, take a flick.
Yeah, I got Bel Air and Casa as a whole.
Realize that your life can be taken from you in the blink of an eye by some sick-minded individual.
I also believe the footage from the cover girls could possibly provide us with answers to Felicia's whereabouts and could confirm her identity.
Within a month, we got a suspect, you're charged with murder, we know who you are, and eventually you're going to get caught.
We will not rest until you have been arrested. We want the suspect to know that we're going to look for you night and day, brother, until you are arrested. We want the suspect to know that the no-snitch policy will never protect you in our community.
This is 24-year-old Felicia Johnson, a young woman from San Diego, California. A woman who was promised $500 for leisure, but was later found dead with missing body parts. In April 2022, Felicia boarded a flight from San Diego, California to Houston, Texas, telling her family it would be a short trip. She checked into a hotel near the Texas Medical Center, stayed in regular contact, and spent her first full day looking for work. Everything about the trip seemed normal, until it wasn't. On April 16, 2022, Felicia suddenly stopped responding to calls, texts, and messages, something her family knew immediately was out of character. Days later, her cell phone was found discarded near Bear Creek Pioneers Park in Houston, damaged and smeared with blood. And nearly a year after she disappeared, on February 7, 2023, human remains, just an upper torso without limbs, were discovered along a wooded trail near Highway 149 in Montgomery County, Texas, just outside Sam Houston National Forest. They belonged to Felicia. But what makes this case especially disturbing isn't just that Felicia was murdered, it's how calculated the timeline was, and how the man believed to be responsible disappeared before he could be arrested. But before we get to the digital trail, the disturbing evidence, and the suspect who vanished without a trace, we have to go back to who Felicia Johnson was, the life she was trying to build, and how a short trip turned into a case that still haunts everyone left behind. This is the life and death of Felicia Johnson.
Take a flick. Take a flick. Come on, take a flick.
Yeah, I got Bel Air and Casa as a whole.
Felicia Marie Johnson was born in 1998 and raised in San Diego, California, the oldest of 3 children in a family that revolved around closeness, communication, and constant check-ins. While her exact birth date was never heavily emphasized in public records, her age, 24 years old, placed her firmly in that transitional stage between youth and independence, where ambition starts to feel urgent and time feels like it's moving faster than expected. She was born to Kevin Johnson and Felicia Lee Smith, and though her parents separated while she was still young, Felicia remains deeply connected to both sides of her family. Her father, Kevin, would later describe her as the kind of daughter who never disappeared quietly. She checked in, she answered calls, she updated her location. Silence was never part of her routine. That consistency mattered because it would later become the first sign that something was wrong. Growing up in San Diego, Felicia developed a personality that people described as magnetic. She was expressive, social, and visibly comfortable being seen. From a young age, she showed interest in presentation, how she looked, how she moved, how she was perceived. She didn't just enjoy attention, she understood how to work with it. Friends said she had a natural confidence that made people gravitate toward her. School was part of her life, but it was never the center of her identity. Not much about Felicia's specific schools has been widely reported in mainstream coverage, and that absence matters because it shows the difference between who she was to her family and how little of her life the public gets to see until something goes wrong. Still, the picture that emerges is of a young woman who cared about appearance, presentation, and opportunity, someone trying to turn ambition into a real future. And Felicia's future, at least in her mind, wasn't limited to one city. By her early 20s, Felicia was actively trying to build a future that wasn't tied to one role or one place. She leaned into work that relied on flexibility, image, and networking, jobs where presentation mattered and where one opportunity could open the door to the next. She used social media not just socially, but strategically, curating her image and staying connected to people who could lead her towards something bigger. And by early April 2022, Felicia felt like she was on the verge of something. She had just celebrated her 24th birthday in San Diego. According to her family, that milestone mattered to her. It wasn't just about getting older, it was about movement, change, taking a chance before another year slipped by. So she made a decision. On April 12, 2022, Felicia boarded a flight from San Diego, California to Houston, Texas, planning what was supposed to be a short trip. She told her family she'd be back soon. She packed multiple outfits, accessories, and personal items, the kind of packing that suggests intention, not a spontaneous detour. Houston wasn't random, it was opportunity-coded, the kind of move young people make when they're exploring options, looking for work, and chasing the next step. At least, that is what she thought was going to happen. When she landed in Houston, she checked into a hotel near the Houston Medical Center, keeping in regular contact with her family. She sent messages, she made calls, she posted updates. Everything, at least on the surface, looked normal. For the next day, Felicia moved through Houston the way she always moved, actively. On April 13, 2022, she began looking for work in person. In her journey, she went to CoverGirls, an adult entertainment club in Northwest Houston, to try her luck and inquire about employment. Security footage showed her entering the building, speaking with staff, and leaving shortly after. She did not get the job. That moment matters, not because it was dramatic, but because it forced a pivot. She had come to Houston with expectations, and now she had to adjust. Surveillance footage captured Felicia outside the club, phone in hand, calling for a ride. She waited, she checked her phone, and then she left the area. That was the last confirmed footage of Felicia alive. At the time, no one knew that. To her family, she was still just on a trip, but then everything stopped. On April 16, 2022, Felicia's communication went silent. No calls, no texts, no social media activity. For most people, that might not raise alarms immediately, but for Felicia, it was completely out of character. Her father noticed right away. He didn't wait days, he didn't assume she was busy. He knew something wasn't right. And that instinct would change everything. Concern turned into fear when Felicia failed to check out of her hotel. Staff reported her missing and law enforcement was notified. As investigators began retracing her last moments in digital activity, phone records, ride histories, and communication logs were reviewed. And slowly, a specific thread began to emerge, one that centered on a man Felicia had been in contact with shortly before she disappeared. That name was Chukwuebuka Nwuboda. He was a 28-year-old man living in Houston, and according to police, he had been in direct contact with Felicia shortly before she disappeared. The connection was not social and not romantic, it was transactional. Messages showed that two had arranged a private meeting for money, an agreement Felicia believed was worth $500. But what investigators discovered next shifted the entire case. Phone records showed that after Felicia left CoverGirls on April 13th, she returned to her hotel near the Texas Medical Center. From there, rideshare data revealed that an Uber had been ordered on her behalf, not by Felicia herself, but through an account linked to Nwuboda. The destination listed was the 3200 block of Windchase Boulevard, an apartment complex in West Houston. At first glance, it looked like a routine pickup until detectives realized something didn't add up. That Windchase address was not where Nwuboda was living at the time. Records showed he had previously lived there years earlier, between 2017 and 2020, but had since moved. Why send Felicia to an outdated address? That question became critical, because surveillance footage later showed Nwuboda arriving at the Windchase location, picking Felicia up in his own vehicle, and then driving her to his current apartment on South Richmond Avenue, just miles away. Investigators would later say they believed Felicia never left that apartment alive. And the timeline only made it darker. At approximately 3 a.m. on April 16, 2022, security cameras captured Nwubeda's vehicle leaving his South Richmond residence. Around that same window, Felicia's phone last pinged near Bear Creek Pioneers Park, more than 20 miles away. Hours later, her phone would be found discarded along a roadside near the park, damaged and abandoned and smeared with blood. That was no coincidence. And it wasn't the last one.
A week since a California woman disappeared here in Houston.
24-year-old Felicia Johnson was last seen at a local nightclub on Friday. Her bloody cell phone recovered later at a park in West Houston. Brittany Ford is live now at Bear Creek Park where the phone was found. Brittany, what's the latest on the search?
Well, I was told that search dogs were ran throughout the area here this morning. You can see that investigators have since wrapped up their investigation here. Now, today I spoke with Felicia's father, who shared more about his 24-year-old daughter.
Last place that she was seen.
It is. Felicia Johnson travels from San Diego to Houston hoping to work here at CoverGirls. We're told that after leaving an audition, she got a ride from a customer that she didn't know. It was the last time anyone saw or heard from this young woman.
A very sweet person, kind heart, give you the shirt off her back, and it's just a shame that she's being put through this ordeal.
Her family believes Johnson got a ride from an unidentified person after her Uber was running late. Police working to get surveillance video.
It's unreal. It's unreal. I'm numb right now. I can't feel anything. Man, I'm just trying to keep myself together. I'm hoping that she's alive.
24-year-old Felicia Johnson was last seen on Friday, April 15th. She was leaving CoverGirl Strip Club on West Little York Road. Her father, Kevin Johnson, says his daughter traveled to Houston to visit family, and she tried to get a job as a dancer at CoverGirls.
These people are young adults, and they just living their life, and nobody's perfect, and sometimes people make mistakes.
After being turned down for the position, she was waiting on an Uber when a customer offered her a ride back to her hotel.
One of their regulars, one of their VIPs.
When no one heard from Felicia Friday night, they became worried. On Saturday morning, they tracked her phone to Bear Creek Park, 4 miles from the strip club where she was last seen. It was found on the side of the road, covered in blood.
I'm running off of pure faith and just not giving up on her, that we're gonna get her back.
Texas EcuSearch scoured the park searching for Felicia with no luck. Her father flew in from San Diego to assist, but he says he believes she's still out there, alive and in danger.
I think she got caught up in one of those sex trafficking, human trafficking situations where they are snatching up these out-of-town girls and putting them to work. That's what I think happened to her. And I don't have any proof, but I feel in my heart that strip club has something to do with it.
Father Kevin desperate for answers. He says the 24-year-old was an aspiring model who loved to do hair and makeup.
She wanted to be a dancer, model, anything that has to do with glamour. That was basically who she was or who she is.
Born and raised in San Diego, California, he says Johnson was in Houston visiting family celebrating her 24th birthday. The family working with Houston police, but also the help of community activist Quanell X and a private investigator.
And now we did learn that the FBI is investigating and looking into her disappearance. Police also searching through surveillance footage, but as of right now, there's no information as far as a suspect. Of course, as soon as we learn more, we'll let you know. For now, I'm reporting live. Gabby Hart, Fox 26 News.
As detectives shifted their focus fully onto Nwuebeda, they began pulling his financial records, surveillance footage, and purchase history. What they uncovered suggested preparation, not panic. On April 16th, the same day Felicia's phone went silent, Nwuebeda was seen on store surveillance purchasing heavy-duty trash bags, latex gloves, a flashlight, a shovel, a kitchen saw, and cleaning supplies. Receipts confirmed the purchases. Video confirmed his presence. Not only that, his right hand was visibly bandaged. That detail did not go unnoticed. The following day, he appeared at a medical clinic seeking treatment for a cut. Staff later described him as nervous and evasive, but at the time there was no active warrant and no body. He walked out freely. But investigators were closing in. On May 13, 2022, Houston police conducted a traffic stop involving Nuobodo. Inside his vehicle, officers found gloves, tools consistent with body disposal, and clothing with what appeared to be dried blood. He was detained and questioned. And then came the problem. Despite mounting suspicion, police still did not have enough to hold him. There was no confirmed body, no murder charge, no witness who could place Felicia inside his apartment beyond digital evidence. So after hours of questioning, Nuobodo was released. But investigators kept his phone, and what they found inside would change everything. His search history included phrases like how to get away with murder, can bleach destroy DNA, most wooded areas near me, and how to become a serial killer. The searches weren't years old, they were recent, timed closely around Felicia's disappearance. At that point, detectives no longer believed this was impulsive, they believed it was deliberate. Armed with that information, police obtained a search warrant for Nuobodo's apartment on South Richmond Avenue.
Lauren, days after she was reported missing, her phone was found covered in blood at this park. Now the search is on for the suspect and where he dumped her body. Today we spoke to a mother at the apartment complex where police say the suspect lived.
That definitely puts fear in me.
Zena Brewington couldn't believe the news about Felicia Johnson. The 24-year-old disappeared in April, and Houston police say she was murdered. Brewington says she was living across from this man, 28-year-old Chakwabuka Ewabodo.
It's definitely scary. I mean, it was scary, first off, just to see the SWAT team there.
Brewington says officers wearing camouflage, armed with weapons, showed up to the complex on May 13th.
I heard them trying to get him to come outside, nothing. And then I heard them actually force their way into the apartment.
Police say Ewabodo killed Johnson inside of his apartment before disposing her personal items at Bear Creek Park. Felicia's phone was found near the park, covered in blood, days after she got into a car with a man at the CoverGirls nightclub on West Little York Road.
What they found inside confirmed their worst fears. Blood was detected in multiple areas of the apartment, on the carpet, in the bathroom, and in the bedroom. Forensic testing later confirmed the blood belonged to Felicia Johnson. Investigators stated publicly that the volume of blood present was incompatible with life. This was no longer a missing person case, it was a homicide, and the evidence didn't stop there. On Nuobodo's phone, investigators discovered disturbing images of multiple women, some appearing unconscious, others positioned in ways that raised immediate alarm. One photo showed what appeared to be a dismembered female torso, eerily similar to remains that would later be discovered in the forest. Even more troubling, detectives learned this was not the first time Nuobodo had been accused of violent behavior. In a previous incident, a woman reported that he had attempted to sexually assault her inside his car. She managed to escape. No charges were filed after she declined to pursue the case. At the time, the incident faded quietly into the background. Now, investigators were seeing it differently. But before police could move to arrest him, Nuobodo vanished. He did not return home. He did not answer calls. He stopped using known accounts. By the time authorities were ready to act, he was already gone. And for Felicia's family, that disappearance felt like a second betrayal. Nearly a year passed with no answers, until February 7th, 2023. That morning, a passerby walking along a wooded trail near Highway 149 in Montgomery County, just outside Sam Houston National Forest, noticed something that didn't belong. A black trash bag, torn, partially hidden beneath leaves and brush, had been discarded off the trail. When authorities opened it, they made a discovery that stopped the investigation cold. Inside was the upper portion of a woman's body. It had been deliberately dismembered, separated with precision rather than accident, and discarded in a way investigators would later describe as intentional concealment. There were no identifying documents, no clothing that could immediately confirm who she was, just remains, left behind in a place chosen for isolation. And what made the discovery even more devastating was what was missing. Only the upper torso was recovered. The rest of her body, her arms, legs, and lower remains were nowhere to be found. Whether they had been disposed of elsewhere, destroyed, or scattered by time and elements was unknown. To this day, those parts have never been recovered. DNA testing would later confirm what investigators had already begun to fear. The remains belonged to Felicia Marie Johnson.
Human remains found in Montgomery County earlier this month have been confirmed as those of Felicia Johnson.
She's the 24-year-old San Diego woman who disappeared while visiting Houston in April of last year, and investigators are still looking for the man charged in her death. Those remains were found in Sam Houston National Forest back on February 7th. Aniela Ruiz is live. What else are you learning tonight, Aniela?
Well, investigators are telling us they hope this brings her family some kind of closure, but HPD continues searching for the man they believe murdered Felicia Johnson. What was supposed to be a birthday trip to Houston turned deadly for 24-year-old Felicia Johnson. She was visiting from San Diego back in April of last year and vanished. And now investigators say DNA and dental records confirm the remains found at the Sam Houston National Forest earlier this month are hers. We spoke to Felicia Johnson's dad when the remains were found, and even then, he knew those remains were his daughter.
Whenever they release her, then I will be able to have a service for her and pay her the respects that she needs.
Houston police have charged 28-year-old Chukwuebuka Nobudu with her murder. He's on the run. His arrest warrant said they met on an escort website before she disappeared on April 16th of last year. The warrant says they found DNA strongly matching Felicia's at Nobudubu's home, and a gun and a knife and a shovel in his car. Investigators say they also found searches related to how to be a serial killer and most forwarded places in Houston.
I was in anguish. I still am, because I want the perpetrators to be caught.
And now that her remains have been found, many hope this brings her family one step closer to getting the closure they deserve.
And at least you don't have to wonder and question, where is she? What happened to her? At least you have that now. And now we can move on to the next step, and that's catching this guy and bringing him to justice.
Now, if you have any information on the suspect, you're told to contact police or Crime Stoppers. There is a $5,000 reward. Reporting live, Anayeli Ruiz, KHOU 11 News.
After nearly a year of searching, the question was no longer where is Felicia? It became what was done to her and how someone could do this and still walk free. But the confirmation of Felicia's remains did not bring justice. It only sharpened the urgency. Once DNA linked the remains to Felicia Johnson, investigators publicly named Chukwuebuka Nuobodo as the prime suspect in her murder.
New calls being made tonight for the public's help in finding the man accused in the disappearance of Felicia Johnson. Johnson was last seen at the CoverGirls nightclub on West Little York Road back in April. Community activist Quanell X and the Rainbow Coalition spoke out tonight, calling for justice in the case. Police are now searching for 28-year-old Chukwuebuka Nuobodo. He is charged with murder and tampering with evidence. Investigators believe the suspect killed her inside of his apartment and got rid of her body days later. Anyone with any information about his whereabouts is asked to contact Crime Stoppers at 713-223-TIPS.
Warrants were issued. His name and photograph were released. Law enforcement agencies warned that he was considered dangerous and urged the public not to approach him. But by then, he was already gone. Despite the digital trail, the purchases, the DNA evidence, and the timeline placing Felicia inside his apartment, Nuobodo had vanished before an arrest could be made. He did not return home, he did not answer calls, he stopped using known accounts, and every attempt to locate him came up empty. And that disappearance raised another unsettling question. How does someone with this much evidence pointing toward them disappear without a trace? Investigators explored multiple possibilities. They considered whether he had fled the state, crossed into Mexico, or left the country entirely. They examined travel records. They monitored financial activity. But there were no confirmed sightings, no reliable leads, and no indication of where he had gone. For Felicia's family, the news was devastating. They had spent months hoping to find her alive, then months preparing themselves for the worst. And now, even with confirmation of her death, they were being told that the person responsible might never be brought to justice. But they refused to stay silent. Felicia's father, Kevin Johnson, became the face of the fight for accountability. He spoke publicly about his daughter, not as a headline or a case number, but as a human being who deserved protection. He questioned why early warnings were missed, why the response had been so slow, and why it took nearly a year for the truth to come out. He also raised concerns about patterns. Felicia was not the only young woman to disappear under similar circumstances. Activists and advocates pointed out that multiple Black women had disappeared in the Houston area after short-term meetups or job-related travel. In several cases, families said they felt ignored or dismissed in the early days. And Felicia's case became part of a larger conversation about whose disappearances trigger urgency, about which victims receive resources, and about how easily predators can exploit silence, delay, and digital anonymity. As public pressure mounted, rewards were offered for information leading to Nueboto's arrest. Tips were encouraged. Authorities asked anyone who had seen him or interacted with him to come forward. But still, nothing. Months passed with no confirmed sightings, no arrests, no closure. And for Felicia's family, grief became something they had to carry without resolution. She was finally laid to rest with dignity, surrounded by those who loved her. Community members gathered, activists spoke, and Felicia was remembered not for how she died, but for who she was before her life was stolen. But even as her family said goodbye, the fight continued. Because until the person responsible is found, Felicia's story remains unfinished. As of today, the search for Chukwuebuka Nueboto continues. He remains wanted for Felicia's murder. Investigators believe he may still be within the United States, possibly using a new identity. Others fear he may have fled the country. What remains certain is that he has not been held accountable. A $5,000 reward is still being offered for information leading to his arrest, yet despite public appeals, confirmed leads have been scarce. For Felicia's father, Kevin Johnson, closure and grief now exist side by side. He laid his daughter to rest, but he has not laid down his fight. He continues to speak her name, to demand accountability, to remind the public that behind every missing person case is a family waiting for answers that may never come unless someone chooses to speak. Felicia Johnson was never just a face on a flyer. She was a daughter, a sister, a young woman with plans that were still unfolding. Her life mattered, her disappearance mattered, and even in her absence, her story continues to speak to families still searching, to communities still demanding justice, and to a system still being asked to listen.
We will not rest until you have been arrested. We want the suspect to know that we're going to look for you night and day, brother, until you are arrested. We want the suspect to know that the no-snitch policy will never protect you in our community. We need you young sisters to look at these cases like Felicia Johnson and realize that your life can be taken from you in the blink of an eye by some sick-minded individual.
Within a month, we got a suspect, you're charged with murder, we know who you are, and eventually you're going to get caught.
Now, if you have any information on the suspect, you're told to contact police or Crime Stoppers. There is a $5,000 reward.
If you have any information about the whereabouts of Chukwuebuka Nueboto, please contact local authorities or the FBI. Tips can be submitted anonymously. And if this case left you with questions, reactions, or thoughts, share them below. Your voice helps keep stories like Felicia's from fading into silence.